Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and welcome to the first trading day of the month, which is now in the books for the day. And a very a quiet day, quiet week that we've had in the market. Not much really going on here. I'm joking, of course. It's been there's been a lot of market moves this week. There's a lot of events this week. Sorry for my sarcasm, but that's how I kind of keep the day a little bit fresh. Is joking around a little bit because yesterday's price action was a bit dry, and so in any event, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So yeah, so to start off with, we can look at what Apple's doing here. They just came out with earnings. I think that their numbers were decent, but they're falling a little bit. Perhaps reports first sales in a year despite slump in China. Maybe that's weighing on the company. I think part of that is priced in terms of what's been going on in China, but maybe the expectation is a little bit still too high. But I'll tell you some really good earnings that came out from Meta, which is up huge at this point in the after hours market. Meta's up 14%. Look at Clorox. We're going to talk a little bit about the consumer staples, absolutely on fire today. 6.7%. There is a driver, of course. You could maybe guess what that driver for some of the consumer staples, utilities, home builders up. But Deckers throws in another quarter. Amazon is up 5.5%. Pins is up basically. Nice pin action in pins. Oh, that's horrible. TTD, which interesting. We saw some calls go up earlier in the week. Thought they might be for Google, but maybe they were for either one of those earnings reports. That name was kind of sliding. I was looking at that right before the close. Snowflake is also up. So you've got a lot of you've got a lot of semiconductors. Sorry, not semiconductors, but you've got a lot of software names catching and a lot of internet names up. So, again, there seems to be every day there seems to be some really good reports that are coming out. And it seems to be that, there are some misses in there too. I think Team reversed and they're now, wow, look at that. They're down 8%. So revenue forecast beats estimate. I'm not sure what's driving that name down. I haven't had a chance to look. Also, Skechers is down. Microchip is down, but yeah, a lot of pin action. We could start with kind of SMCI, which I think is up again after hours. Remember, this is kind of a company that just really crushed obviously their estimates and then the numbers themselves, and they really haven't spent much time. I mean, you look at even like yesterday, for example, with the market weak, and the company kind of just basically hung in there all day long. It's always a good sign in my opinion, when a company when the overall market is really weak. And if you find a company or two that is also included in the indices, which it is, I think SMCI's and IWM, so IWM falling hard yesterday and SMCI wasn't. And again, we refer to that all the time as relative strength. But usually that means that when the market is going to stop going down, it's going to continue to outperform. And this had a monster day, up 10% today. And also NVIDIA did the same thing. These two are kind of, going back and forth in terms of the two big, really nice performance, two really big, breakout names. And amazing, a little bit of a pause in action, not much. And I believe that's a new closing high, not the all-time closing intraday, but new closing high. Let me go over the indices really quickly because we have new value areas for the month, and that is always kind of gives a good picture. As always, the MarketWebs, they're not a predictor, right? Most the indicators that I'm familiar with, they don't predict, right? The MarketWebs gives you a roadmap of saying, hey, We're trending, we're in value, we're range bound, or we're breaking down. It really just gives you a sense of a trend, and and breaking out of resistance, very clean support and resistance levels, so that you could formulate, a game plan and put a trade on. But here's where we are. S&P, I was getting a little bit nervous, and I think I hinted at that in yesterday's video, that the way that we closed yesterday, if we had some more follow through today, which I was thinking that it was definitely possible for downside follow through today. And, it just shows you right now how strong this market is. And we did not, we opened up right around the inside of the new value area for the month of February. And look at the candle for the day. Now, again, first day of the month, sometimes there's new buying, but, I tweeted this chart out this morning too, just talking about that, we came in and we tested, and we kind of hung on there to the bottom of value. We had that retest in the first couple of hours of the day, and it held up quite nicely. And so that bottom of value gave a really nice look. Also, another chart that I tweeted out last night too was just the amount of 5-minute look at that. Speaking of a virgin point of control, but look at the two on the 5-minute. Now, I know when we look at the 5-minute chart, it's the least significant. But as always, you can sometimes find a signal or something that you weren't seeing. But two VPOCs taken out, on the decline yesterday, and a little bit of almost a retest of that at around 11 o'clock this morning, and look at the move, coming back to those earlier highs. So note the VPOC taken out. Qs, which I also I write. Oh, look at that, a VPOC being taken out. So again, price will go back to these levels. So this is still, and I think that we're rallying after hours, but notice that this was showing just a little bit of relative weakness in relation to S&P, but we held where we needed to. Talked about holding the 20-day moving average. We kind of came in here, tested, and not quite back above the 5-period moving average, but really the level that I'm going to be watching is this 421.14. So again, that's how it really helps for the to have the MarketWebs value areas, because you can make a decision based on this. Then the decision is, I would be long versus 421.14, and if we start to move back inside, break back inside the the February value area, then it's kind of hands off, right? But this is a trending chart, so we want to make sure that the trend is continuing here. All right, and then the wild card, IWM. Holy cow! Just unbelievable in terms of the whippiness that's been going on in this thing. Once again, the 50-day moving average, this is also something that I wrote about this morning in Substack. I was saying that, hey, we're going to have like another retest of this 50-day moving average. And it held quite nicely last time, and also held the bottom of value. And, I was thinking too, like, hey, this might be a breakdown. I actually put on a little bit of a short because I was legging into some positions this morning that I wanted to get into. And I was a little bit worried about that the market was looking vulnerable, especially when you saw bonds, which I'm going to get to. But especially when you saw bonds, I think up at one point, 2%. TLT finished, it was up well over 2% for the day. So that's really one of the catalysts, besides all these other moves that took place for the day. I want to talk bonds because I think I was kind of hinting at that when I talked about the move in consumer staples and utilities and builders and biotech today. They are very rate type sensitive. The higher interest rates go, the less that you need to hold utilities or higher dividend paying stocks. But when bonds begin to rally like they did today, and again, what we're talking about, people get this confused quite frequently. What Powell spoke about yesterday, and gave his testimony, and the Q&A talked about whether most likely that they're not going to be cutting interest rates in March. That's the short-term rate. That's what's known as the overnight rate, right? And we heard money markets hit a money market funds hit an all-time asset level today, I think of $6 trillion, right? So that's what you get in your money market fund. So that's what you should be getting, right? Is very close to what the Fed funds rate is, right? And that's what the Fed controls. Let me just center this for you. Right. So, you could see the rate here is effective rate is 5.3%, right? Depending on, who you're getting your money market fund, they should be offering you something close to that. Or if not, you could buy T-bills, right? Which again is very short-term securities, right? They're 30-day or 60-day, or I think 90 and 180-day too. I own some of these things, I should know that, but yeah, so that, that's the really super short-term rate. What we're talking about here is long-term interest rates, which the Fed does not control here, and the market will move. Certain areas of the market will definitely move based on this. So, just where we were about a week and a half ago looked like a potential breakdown, right, in TLT. Meaning, again, you have to think about this inversely. That's the relationship between a bond and interest rates. But look at the move that we've seen over the last week. Now there's a version point of control sitting there at 98.79, which could be as far as we go. But of course, you're going to see some rotations based on this, on fast, aggressive moves in the bond market and interest rates. So let's talk about that just for a minute. I know this is not the most exciting group, but there's XLP up 2% for the day. Right. Again, it's a big move. And I sent out this chart of Procter and Gamble, which had a good earnings quarter, right? So this is this did go on our earnings list of high performers, gap up names and strong earnings names, but it's a pretty clean breakout there in Procter and Gamble, and that's not the only one. I mean, you don't have to own the XLP ETF, but look at what's going on in Colgate-Palmolive. Helene Meisler brought this one to my attention just a little while ago, but it's funny because you have to know a little bit about relationships. Like today, I saw some people talk about Celsius. So like, hey, look at the move in Celsius. Celsius finally got going. Well, what group does that Celsius belong to? Well, it belongs to beverages, right? Look at what Pepsi did today, up 1.9%, right? So it's not so much company specific. Sometimes it is company specific, right? Earnings, or, sometimes there's some, a story about, a company. So there certainly are individual company moves and stories that are out there, but that move in Celsius today, I think, really had to do with overall the beverage companies and consumer staples moving pretty well. Speaking of which, Walmart had a big day today, right? Remember, they announced a 3-for-1 stock split the other day. Costco, which is my favorite of the group, also new closing high, it looks like, for Costco. And even Target had a decent day today, up 3.8%. So again, these groups move in bunches. ITB, which I like this group a lot, it stalled out, really got rejected at this new high, kind of came back in, but sometimes it's a shakeout type move. Pulte is very close to breaking out. Builder, which I mentioned I was legging into some positions. I added some Builder back. This is a breakout name, right? This is one of my favorite names in that group. I also like the flooring names, right? And Trex was a name that I bought. I mean, Trex was up 6.5% today, right? So, a decent, definitely a decent move. Here's my trades for the day, and this is how I executed today. But CCJ had a nice move, scaling out of that name. I started to leg into some Microsoft. Microsoft was not one of the big movers for the day. But as I mentioned earlier, that I think Microsoft, the move kind of resembles what happened last quarter. Now, this stock is still, the difference is that the stock is still up a lot. This did not close above its value area, but this is what happened the last time it reported earnings, right? Back in October, that was a tough time for the market, so they just got a little bit unlucky the time that they reported their earnings. And back then, a lot of names were not responding well after their earnings report, right? And then once we kind of got to the end of October, beginning of November, this took off. So it resembles a little bit of this. I don't know if it's going to play out the same way, but I went ahead and, I'm legging into some stock because it may take a few days for that to kind of shake out. Hub is another name, right? We keep track of all these names that had good earnings. You know, really nice move there in Hubble, right? This is one of those like industrial slash like electrical type companies. Really, really nice in this one. Speaking of those types of companies, look at VRT. Shame on me, I sold this name the other day. I think I sold it before before we got into the Fed day, but really you know, again, this theme is going to move a little bit on what SMCI does, and also Dell is another one too. Had a really nice day too, up 3.5%. So again, a lot of movers today. You know, these are days where there's no way that you can catch every one of these movers, but you know, again, there's some nice trends that are developing, and I'll keep this video shorter than yesterday's. You know, one of the things that I thought was just really going back to the interest rates, right? With bonds rallying yesterday, as bad as like the price action was yesterday on the back of Mr. Powell, one of the things that I thought was really notable was that bonds were rallying yesterday, which is not a negative for is from what I believe is not a negative for equities to take that pressure. You know, again, it's just one factor. It's not the only factor out there, but you know, bonds, the moves in bonds are important. All right, so I will leave it there, but I think, you know, a lot of good opportunities. You know, I started adding some names where I just thought that there may be a good opportunity, right? We continue to build out, you know, our earnings list, which I think we've now have like over 35 names, not including today's names that are gapping up. You know, so that's something that I do every quarter. A lot of times we will find opportunities based, you know, you find potential leaders, you know, like the SMCI, right? You know, potential leaders from a strong earnings report. You know, again, what's the logic behind that? Well, not all funds have positions in some of these names that surprise to the upside. So they begin to kind of accumulate you know, after the earnings report. All right, guys, that is it for today's recap. I mentioned Substack. You could either find me there, ttgtrading.substack.com. You know, that's a nice little intro to Tribeca Trade Group, and it's a cheap way to do it. But if you want to know, like, you know, trade entries and exits and those types of things, I was just talking to somebody about this. Then you can go to tribecatradegroup.com and you can become a member of our trading room and our trading community. Guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow. Don't forget, tomorrow, jobs report too. So that's another potential catalyst that we have on our hands.